Hello and welcome to Intragen's second OneLogin webinar. I'm Helena Carter. In this webinar, we'll be looking at specific use cases, focusing on One Identity's identity as a service for small to medium businesses and enterprise. In today's enterprise environment, many changes happen if people leave or join an organisation or perhaps get a different role. This topic focuses on what changes when it comes to applications. People need to be able to use apps and access needs to be revoked or amended. Well, to talk to us about this, we're joined by Peter Bastiansen, Account Director at Intragen. Peter, thank you so much for joining us today. Can you start then by telling us what onboarding is and why quick on and offboarding is so important nowadays?
Yes, onboarding is quite a big topic today. So there's a lot of changes ongoing for organizations. So people are joining the organization, right? They need to be given hardware, they need to have the right applications, and so on. At the same time, there are always changes, right? So people get another role. That means that they need to get maybe additional applications, or some applications need to be revoked. So quite a few changes, but in fact, it's all about productivity. So they need to get productive and stay productive as quickly as possible. At the other side, people also leave the organization. So that means offboarding as quickly as possible. And then, it's about making sure there's no lingering access anymore for those people. And that's the kind of functionality that actually OneLogin offers out of the box. If you look at the bigger picture with One Identity unified platform, it also adds governance and privileged access to that. But that's the full story. It's about productivity and security.
And change was something that was mentioned a lot there. What would you say has changed over time?
So there's a few big movements actually. So one is there's simply more cloud, more applications, more users, and also different kinds of users. And that has an impact on organizations. So cloud applications need to be managed differently than the traditional on-prem applications. So for a user, you need to create an account in the cloud application, and how do you keep that overview and keep it centralized somehow. And the other thing related to different users, traditionally it was about workforce people, so own employees, but there are now much more external workers, like consultants, like partners, customers, and so on, that need access to certain applications as well. So organizations really need to rethink how they organize managing access for all of their users. And that's actually the whole thinking behind the Identity as a Service platform of OneLogin.
And how do changes then relate to security risks?
I guess the key message is that security people typically do not like changes, because changes means that there is a potential risk. And changes will always happen. So it's not about avoiding change. It's really about controlling risk. And how do you do that as an organization? So it's important that you get the visibility of which users have access to which applications. It's also about setting up a controlled way of providing access to your users. And that can be done, for example, by taking a role. So user has a certain role in the organization. With that role comes access to application XYZ. And there are more ways of doing that, but that's a quite common way of providing that access. So it's really about controlling risk.
Peter, thank you so much for talking us through all that. Let's now take a look at a demonstration of this in practice.
To streamline user on and offboarding into cloud applications, OneLogin offers a very powerful and flexible, and yet at the same time very easy to administrate role-based access control engine that uses two basic concepts to assign applications to users. One of these concepts are mappings. Mappings are essentially if-then constructs that can leverage any kind of information that you have about a user to make decisions. What am I going to assign to this user? So any information that you have in the attributes of this user, or things like group membership in an integrated Active Directory or LDAP, can be used to make these decisions. One of the things we do based on these decisions is to assign roles to the end user. Roles essentially group apps together. So by assigning roles, you assign application access to that user. Now let's have a look at what this looks like in the real world. I've prepared a demo user in my environment in Active Directory, actually, Adrian Smith, who does not exist in OneLogin yet. So now I'm going to move over to my Active Directory here, where Adrian has been created as a user. I've put him into my sales department as an account executive. And now I will move Adrian to an OU in Active Directory that is configured to actually sync with OneLogin. And as you can see, there is actual real-time sync with Active Directory in OneLogin. So now when I search for Adrian, he's already here. And when I look at his user profile, all the information has synced over, all the attributes, and also AD group membership, which can be used as an attribute, like I said, to make decisions in mappings. What do I want to assign to this user? Now, like I said, Adrian is an account executive in my sales department. Salespeople travel a lot, so when I look at the authentication tab, I can see he's been automatically assigned an MFA user policy. And when I look at his list of applications, he's been assigned everything he needs based on his role in the organization, based on his responsibilities and what he needs for his job. But not only that, we can go beyond that yes or no decision. Do I get an application, yes or no? We can make more granular decisions and actually go into authorization and assign entitlements inside applications as well. So when I look at the details of Google Workspace here, for instance, he's already been assigned the correct group, sales, and he's in the organization, account executives. Or when I look at the details for the Office 365 integration, I can see also he's in the correct group here or groups, and he's already been assigned the licenses that he needs. In a different browser, I have signed in as Adrian. And as you can see, he immediately has access to all the applications that has been assigned and that he's been provisioned into. So when I click on M365, for instance, he's already been provisioned here and he's been assigned the correct licenses. So on the left, I can see he's got all the products he needs inside of M365. And the same goes for Salesforce. When he clicks on Salesforce, I can see his user has already been provisioned into Salesforce and he can work immediately. But we all know things change. People join the company, people leave the company, people move to different departments. So if I were to move Adrian from sales to HR maybe, and I click apply here, once again with the Active Directory real-time sync, this syncs over immediately. And now when I look at the page here for Adrian's applications, I can see he gets modified, all the applications get updated, and he's getting deleted in Salesforce because now he's in HR, doesn't need Salesforce anymore. All right, so far so good. When I refresh the page again, let's see. Now this is done, and as you can see, Salesforce is gone. But what about Adrian's side of things? As we can see, Salesforce is still here in the portal where he's still signed in with the same session. But now when I refresh the page here, Salesforce is gone as well. And now he's still got a Salesforce session open over here. But when he clicks anywhere, this is all he gets. So in real time, this has synced over from Active Directory to OneLogin, and he got deprovisioned from Salesforce immediately and gets a forced logout from the system.
Next up, we're looking at password reset and use of multi-factor authentication. Traditionally, in organisations, a password reset was done via Active Directory. But how can it be dealt with if not all applications are linked to Active Directory? And how can you increase security using multi-factor authentication for applications? Here to answer these questions is Peter Bastiansen, Account Director at Intragen. Peter, nice to see you. So first of all, tell us, why is a password reset relevant for an organisation?
It's all about productivity, I guess. So time is money. And if a user is not able to use an application, they cannot be productive. And, that's never a good message. So in the traditional way, when a user cannot work on the application, they need to open an IT ticket, right? Then they need to wait till an IT person picks it up. So it's waiting time, and on the other side, IT people have additional tasks. So that's not really a good situation. So what if there would be a way to have it done automatically and directly by the user? And that's actually what the OneLogin solution provides, including a direct sync back to Active Directory AD to keep everything up to date all the time. So making life a bit more productive, I would say.
And can you talk to us now then about multi-factor authentication and why it's become so common?
Yes, MFA stands for multi-factor authentication, and it means that a user needs to prove, that they are who they say they are. So it's an additional step next to the normal login, and it's needed nowadays, I'm afraid, because of the changed security landscape. So I think we have all heard stories about breaches and so on. And this is really adding another step in the authentication process. And nowadays, I would say that most applications, they actually have the capability to ask for MFA as an additional step.
And how does multi-factor authentication then reduce the risk of a security breach?
What we're all trying to prevent is, in the end, that identities get compromised somehow, because these are the kind of things that hackers are trying to use. Once they have access via one application, they try to expand that to other applications, maybe elevate the admin rights so they can get into the even more sensitive applications. So that's the part that we're trying to reduce. And by adding an additional layer of authentication, that risk goes down. And, organizations can choose whether they do that for all users, all applications, or they can be more selective by only selecting the, let's say, more sensitive applications. For example, on a finance department, that would need an additional step.
And does multi-factor authentication then only come in one form?
No, they don't. There are many flavors. And most vendors, they have quite a wide range. And also OneLogin has a very long list of potential MFA factors, as they are called. I guess it's quite relevant to make sure that it's tailored really to use cases and also user groups, because certain use cases ask for certain MFA factors and also certain user groups. Some users simply do not have particular MFA factors available, so it's important to tailor that to your users.
Peter, great to chat through that with you. Let's get a demonstration then of this in practice now.
The OneLogin self-service password reset is a feature that offers great value in different ways. For one, of course, you save a lot on help desk tickets, but it also offers a great and very intuitive user experience for both workforce and customer IAM users. Because regardless of whether I'm a user who is maybe synced over from a corporate directory like an AD or an LDAP, or if I'm a SIAM user who is managed and authenticated in OneLogin directly, all I need to do is click this Forgot Password button and now provide a username. In this case, this is Tori, my demo user for this. And now the system will check the security policy that applies to Tori as an end user And based on what is configured in that policy, she will be presented with a list of different MFA methods to choose from. Of course, she needs to have those registered first. Now, as you can see, OneLogin offers our own products like OneLogin Protect, or we can send an email, an SMS, ask security questions. But we also support standards like TOTP, so we can integrate with any other TOTP-based authenticator app like Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator, and many others. We also support WebAuthn and OIDC, so we can integrate with literally any third-party MFA vendor or product that supports either of these standards. So we could even use high-trust IDPs like e-government ID or bank ID or others as an MFA factor to protect this password reset flow, or use passkeys as you can see in this example. Now I'm going to use OneLogin Protect. I'm going to get a push notification to my phone over here, click on Access, provide my number that I see on the display. Now I need to do biometric verification on the device as well. And now I'm guided through this flow of resetting my password. And now I can sign in again. And you can apply additional security controls to this password reset flow. So besides obviously using highly phishing resistant MFA methods to protect this flow, you could do things like enforcing IP whitelisting, especially in a workforce environment. That might make sense, that you would force users onto VPN or the corporate network, otherwise you will not allow the password reset. So in this example here, Tori goes back and says, I want to reset my password. Again, gets taken through this flow. This time I'm going to use YubiKey. Simply press the button here on my YubiKey. Try to reset my password. And as you can see, now she gets prompted that she cannot reset her password from this IP address, and she gets blocked until she's back on the corporate network. Now, when we look at security settings in OneLogin, there are 5 basic concepts we need to look at. One is, of course, the different MFA factors that we support. Our own products, but also integrations with third-party solutions. And with a bring your own MFA solution in OneLogin, we can integrate with any MFA solution out there that supports OIDC. Then we have the Smart Factor module, Smart MFA and Smart Access, which is based on the Vigilance AI and performs a risk assessment for every single login event to OneLogin. The pre-authentication smart hook can do 2 things for us. For one, it can prevent unwanted user behavior, like if you're coming from the wrong browser, from the wrong geographic location, at the wrong time of the day, wrong IP address, things like that. So again, it looks at a lot of context. And based on this context, it can make decisions like blocking the user or customizing the login flow, for instance, dynamically assigning a different security policy that will enforce step-up authentication or maybe enforce stronger authentication factors or things like that. Then we've got the user policies, which control the behavior of the system whenever a user tries to sign into the platform. Where all the smart flows are defined, the password policy, and of course MFA or smart MFA is applied. And then the app policies, which are independent from the user policies, and that I can use to additionally protect specific very sensitive applications. So I could say, even if you're signed into the SSO portal, if you want to use this particular very sensitive application, I'm going to enforce IP whitelisting again, and I'm going to prompt for MFA. So these are the 5 concepts, and based on these, you can build a cascade of policies that are exactly fit for purpose for your organization and your users. When we consider how OneLogin can help establish robust access mechanisms for applications across the entire enterprise ecosystem by preventing risky access and by designing custom authentication flows, we need to have a look at the Smart Factor authentication feature and the pre-authentication smart hook in OneLogin. For this, we're going to have a look here at Dante as our test user. And looking at his authentication tab, I can see he's been assigned a brute force defense flow with a smart access feature configured. And he's already got his MFA methods registered, so he should be good to go to sign in and use the platform. I can manage those factors here from the admin UI. I can delete them, maybe if he loses a device or something. I can generate temporary tokens if need be. So I can do all these things here from the admin UI. Now I'm going to sign in as Dante. So go into a different browser again, sign in as Dante. He's on a brute force defense flow, so he gets asked for MFA before even getting asked for a password. Now, let's assume maybe Dante doesn't have his phone with him or cannot accept the push notification for whatever reason. He can say, I want to change my authentication factor. I've also got my YubiKey registered, so I'm going to use that instead. Push the button on my YubiKey, and now I'm getting asked for my password. So to save us all a little time, I'm going to skip ahead here. I'm going to leave you, go offline, and go through a bunch of different login flows. I'm going to simulate Dante logging in from this browser again, from the same scenario, and let's see what the Smart MFA feature does with that. And I'm also going to sign in from different proxies, from different regions in the world, and also from a Tor browser. And then we will have a look at what does the audit trail in OneLogin say? What kind of information do we see in the event stream that tells us what's been going on and why Dante got prompted for MFA, got blocked, whatever happened. And I'm back from going through all these different login scenarios for Dante. And now we're going to look at the event stream and look at all the information that we get in here when looking at these login events. The ones in red are the ones where Dante got prompted for MFA or got blocked. And when we look at the details, we see all the risk reasons and the risk score provided by the Vigilance AI. So I get all these different inputs that factored into the risk score, and I get all this information. Why did Dante get prompted for MFA, or why did he get blocked? This next event here with a very low score, this is when the system has learned Dante's behavior. He came from the exact same login scenario over and over again, and eventually the system learned that behavior, did not prompt for MFA anymore because the risk score was just so low. And now looking at the top login event here with a very high risk score, again, we see all these different risk reasons, but one in particular, that is because in this time I came from a Tor browser and the system prevented that login because logging in from a Tor network is not allowed by configuration of the Smart Factor feature in OneLogin. And coming from yet another scenario, this time I proxied in from a proxy in Singapore, and my pre-authentication smart hook in OneLogin is configured to blacklist Singapore. So geofencing is configured here, and now this time it's the pre-authentication smart hook that blocked this login attempt.
In our next use case, we'll take a look at passwordless authentication. In general, people have dozens of passwords and they have a tendency to forget them, or maybe they'll use a single password that's really easy to remember. Sometimes this one simple password might be used for everything. Well, Peter Bastiansen, Account Director at Intragen, joins us now to talk risks and solutions. Peter, tell us why passwordless access is getting more and more important.
So let me return that question to you. How many people do you know that really like using passwords?
A lot of them, myself included. Hand up.
Exactly. So that's, I guess that's the main driver for the passwordless movement. Yeah, there are really a lot of technologies available that are now making lives easier of people. So that's the main driver. At the same time, it's important to understand that passwords are still here and will stay here still for an amount of time. And that's simply because the software vendor needs to be ready for this, the organization needs to be ready for this, but also users need to be ready for this. So we're getting there, but it's still work in progress.
And tell us a bit more then about what passwordless access would look like.
Authentication in general is really something that you know, or that you are, or that you have. So one of those three elements is typically the source. So in case of passwords, it's something that you know. So if you're looking at passwordless, you need to look at the other ways of doing things. So something that you have or something that you are. So you can think of things like a fingerprint or maybe facial recognition. That's what you are. What you have, it can be like a YubiKey. That's a hardware device looking like a USB stick, and that can unlock applications with your fingerprint on it. Those kind of things are examples of what it can look like, and it's particularly important also to make sure you can create combinations as well, so that will increase the security level in general. So, for example, a certificate in combination with a fingerprint works really well, and that's all these combinations is what OneLogin offers as a standard.
And you mentioned security there, so can passwordless access still be safe?
Absolutely. So it can be, ideally be in a combination of different factors, but as such, it's a proven technology, so it has been used for quite some time. It typically is also about balancing usability and security, because you want to have it secure, but you also want people to be able to use it in still a nice manner. So for that reason, OneLogin actually has introduced a risk factor. So for every single login to an application, they look at different factors, like what place is logged in from, what device, time of day, and there's a whole very long list of all different factors. And based on that risk score, MFA can be suppressed, or maybe you can ask for an additional MFA factor, or the access can be blocked altogether. So if it's not needed, then we help the user, then it's usability. If there's a risky access, then it can be blocked altogether. So that's really the balance that we are trying to find.
Peter, thank you so much for joining us today to talk us through all that. Let's take a look now at what this looks like in practice.
Facing a paradigm shift towards passwordless authentication, of course OneLogin supports passwordless flows as well as other login flows like a standard flow or a brute force defense flow. But now, of course, to protect passwordless flows, we need strong authentication factors. OneLogin provides those with our own products, like OneLogin Protect, which is our mobile app that works with push notifications, numbers matching, and biometric verification on the device. But we can also support any other TOTP-based authenticator like Microsoft Authenticator, Google Authenticator, and by supporting WebAuthn and OIDC, we can integrate with literally any third-party MFA solution that supports or complies with either of these standards. Now, one of the great challenges with passwordless authentication flows is user onboarding. I've got a user here, Ann Wilson, who is a new user in my organization, and she wants to log in for the first time. When I look at the authentication tab here in OneLogin, I can see that she's been assigned a passwordless user policy, but she doesn't have any multi-factor methods registered yet. So that puts me kind of in a catch-22. She should sign in passwordless, but she doesn't have any factors registered that would protect that login flow. And this is where the OneLogin pre-authentication smart hook comes into the picture. The pre-authentication smart hook will look at all kinds of context around each login event, and it can dynamically customize the login flow depending on the context that it sees. So in this case, it will see that Anne is a passwordless user, but she's got a passwordless policy assigned. So now when Anne tries to sign in for the first time, The smart hook dynamically assigns a different user policy that asks for her password and then forces her to register MFA so she can serve her passwordless login flow in the future. So all I need to do is click Begin Setup here. And again, depending on what is configured in the security policy that applies to Anne as an end user, she will be presented with a list of MFA methods that are available to her via configuration. So in this case here, I'm simply going to click on OneLogin Protect and use our mobile app. All I need to do is click Activate here. And now on my phone, I open OneLogin Protect. Click on a little plus icon in the app. You can't see that because my phone blacks out the screen sharing when I open the MFA app. Apologies for that. But when I click the little plus icon, I can scan the QR code. My device is now registered. And as you can see, Anne is signed in now. Going back to my admin UI, now when I refresh the page here, I can see that now Anne has a multi-factor method registered. I can click on it as an admin. I can manage MFA methods here. I can also issue a temporary token if need be. So now Anne has an MFA device registered and she can serve her passwordless flow. And next time when Anne tries to sign in, all she needs to do is provide her username. And she gets a push notification that she accepts, provides fingerprint, and now she's signed in.
Kellen Yemi, lead business consultant at Intragen, joins us now. So let's talk first of all about value. What core values does Intragen provide to customers?
Well, tools are always tools, and there are excellent tools on the market. But just like you get a hammer, it doesn't do anything by itself, and you actually know where to hit with it and you know what to hit with it. So I think that is our main value for our customers. We help them to actually select the correct tools for their different problems. We start from the actual advisory, analyze of their state, and when they begin their journey. Then we also help on the technical implementation of those tools, providing both our input of these are the use cases you should actually address first. This is how you should address them. So providing also insight on how they should do things on top of that implementation. And then we also provide the managed lifecycle services, so providing support, continuous operations, monitoring, all that for our customers to the tools that they have selected from us. So I think we provide pretty much from the beginning of their journey to the very end, if you can say that there is an end to their journey. We provide value all the way.
And what would you say then about what the customer might want versus what they actually need?
Yeah, we usually tend to question what they want and also propose them with alternative ideas because we have a lot of field experience, how different companies have addressed them. So we tend to do what they need, not so much of what they want. So we want to be sparring and challenging the customer as well, and not just provide capable technical consultants who blindly obey what the customer wants. I don't think that is ever the correct way to go.
And let's talk a little bit more about the support side of things then. When it comes to support, would you say you're there for the long haul?
Definitely. We are really in it for the long haul, and we want to be our customers' trusted partners throughout the entire journey. That means that they have access to our business consultancy services as well as our technical consultants all around their IM journey.
And what key thought then would you like to leave us with today?
I would like to leave us with the thought of thinking this as a whole. We've just seen a proper use case, how to address the challenge of managing external access, but it is a single use case. Once you've solved that, it doesn't mean that your IM journey is at its end. There are other use cases to solve, although it is a very good start if you are able to solve this particular use case.
A super point to end this on. Thank you so much for joining us today. Lovely to speak to you. Thank you. Coming up in our third webinar, we'll be looking at specific use cases that focus on expanding cloud identity as a service usage and how to add more resilience to your environment. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, and see you in the next webinar soon.